You think motion is a simple thing. As if the world has a label maker. This thing is moving. This thing is still there. You feel like the universe itself applies these labels completely neutral. Completely final. You just have to look. But here you sneak in one thing. A referee. An invisible judge who decides who is truly moving and who is just pretending. You never name that judge, but your mind simply cannot function without it. Imagine, you're standing on the platform, the train is moving. You say it's the train that's moving, not you. The person inside the train says no, the platform is going backwards. You both are absolutely sure about your own place. You think there will be only one right answer. I just don't know. This thinking itself is the problem. Why? Because you're assuming that moving is a quality inherent to the object as if ingrained in it. And even if both people disagree, there must be a third viewpoint that tells the final truth. A cosmic CCTV footage, an ultimate camera angle. The Feynman style point is this: that angle doesn't exist. The universe does not create a privileged frame for your convenience. There is no real still background. There is no silent stage upon which all actors move objectively. You feel bad because even your language deceives you. Move is a verb. It feels like some real action is taking place. Still is a state. It feels like silence, without knowing the physics. You create a courtroom, an accused moving object, an innocent resting object, and a judge absolute space. Now let me give you a small test. Close your eyes and imagine a spaceship in deep space. No stars in sight, no nearby dust, just you and your ship. Now the question is the ship moving or not? Your mind immediately searches for something relative to something, because without comparison you cannot define motion. And I don't even do physics. This does not mean that anything can happen. This means that what you were thinking of as absolute motion is just an extra piece of your imagination, not part of reality. And when that referee hat goes away, you're left with an uncomfortable truth. Motion is not a thing, it is a relation. You think of rest as a simple, natural, straightforward state, like the actual mode of things, still, and you consider motion a disturbance, the result of some push, the effect of some force. This intuition comes from your own life. Everything stops. A ball rolls and gets tired. A car slows down when you turn off the accelerator. Your mind learns a moral lesson from this. Things need a reason to move, not a reason to stop. But the first blow of physics is this. You are considering friction as nature, the ground, the wind, the bearings, the road. All these are the background noise of your world. The stay put you call a default isn't actually a default. It's just a leak of energy, a mechanical tax. If you remove these taxes, just imagine the whole structure of your thinking is shaken. Imagine a hockey puck not on perfectly smooth ice, but on a perfectly ideal, frictionless surface. You give it a gentle push. Your mind says, it will roll. Then it will slowly stop. But you added this again yourself. In reality, in the ideal case, he just won't stop. And here's another subtle point. You're still imagining that moving is a special state that's being maintained, just like the puck has to carry motion. In physics, at the classical level, force does not maintain motion. Force changes it. It changes direction. It changes speed. It is not the job of force to maintain motion. Your brain assigned this role to force by observing friction. That's why you think, if I don't push, things will stop. The truth is this: if I don't push, things will remain the same. Same speed, same direction. You only feel bad about it because you were sitting there thinking that way was rest. Now a little twist. You think that rest is a stable reality, that if you observe something at rest, then it must actually be at rest. But you've already lost one thing from chapter 1, the referee. So what is left for rest now? Rest is still just a statement. I'm matching my speed with this thing. Down. You, sitting inside the train, call the cup still. The observer from the platform calls it moving. Neither of you is convincing the universe. The universe knows only one thing: you are making comparisons, and the comparisons are consistent. Rest on no pedestal. Rest no sacred status. Rest is just the comfort of one frame. And now you are left with an uncomfortable thought. Agar rest default nahi. So the motion, which you were considering as an exception, is not even an exception. You consider speed as a number which is inside the thing, like identity card. It's going at 80 kilometers per hour. Bis. Caught him. But speed isn't an answer you can just throw out. Speed is the first question, and you often hide half of the question. How much speed compared to what? You ignore this phrase, thinking it's just a matter of context, not physics. But this is precisely where your intuition quietly breaks down. Imagine you're driving on a highway. The speedometer reads 100. You think, my speed is 100. You make this number the property of your car. Now imagine, another car is moving exactly parallel to your car, same direction, same lane, same smooth as sand, it's also at 100. You both look at each other. What is your feeling? That car doesn't move. It's with me. Its speed for you relative to you is almost zero. Now you have two speeds that are correct at the same time, 100 relative to the road, and 0 relative to the car nearby. You will say, yes, obviously, but somewhere in your heart you are still thinking that behind these two there must be a third, real speed that the thing is actually carrying. Test it. If I ask you, how fast are you moving right now? You immediately replied, I am sitting. Then you'll remember, the Earth is revolving. The Earth is revolving around the Sun. The Sun is in the galaxy cluster. Suddenly, your speed doesn't feel like a fixed thing. It feels like a list, frame after frame, reference after reference. You realize you're not looking for a number. You're looking for an anchor, and physics does not give you this. Speed numbers are meaningless unless you define what you consider a stationary background, and reality doesn't make that choice for you. Your measurement, your instrument, your choice does. This is where the discomfort begins. The simple quantity you consider most objective, speed, is also a relationship, a comparison. Speed is not a feature of one thing. Speed is the result of your description. And when you take this seriously, you start to notice something else. You weren't asking how fast, you were actually asking, which perspective do I consider the center of reality? You understand trajectory as something that trails behind the object like a line drawn in chalk. A real line. A causal path. You think the path the object took is its own, fixed like history. Now all that's left is to describe it. The charm of this belief is that it gives you security. If the path is real, then understanding the motion becomes just a matter of tracking. Wherever things go, you just write them down. But this picture is also a result of your convenience, not reality. Imagine you throw a ball. You see a beautiful arc. You say, look, projectile motion. This is the path. Now you zoom out on the same scene far enough to see the Earth rotating. The ball's path is no longer an arc. It becomes a strange, twisted ribbon because your sense of up and down is rotating. You will say, yes, different viewpoint. But note, you haven't changed the ball. You've only changed the stage of your description. And the path, what you considered a property of the ball, has shape-shifted. Now move further. If you want to draw the path of the ball in space, you first need to decide how to label the points in space, a system of coordinates, a grid, origin, axis, a reference body with which you can define here. Here you quietly make a claim. The space has its own address system, and you're just reading it. No, you are creating it. A path isn't actually a line of objects. A path is a record created when you repeatedly do the following. Define position at any instant, then define it again after some time, and then emphasize these points in a continuous story. You also assume this continuity. You fill in the gaps because your mind can't tolerate discontinuity. If the points match, you draw a line and then accept the line as part of reality. This is why path seems so convincing, because you yourself are making it smooth. Now another discomfort. If two people record the same event in different frames, their paths will be different, not just different numbers, but different shapes. And then you ask, so which is the real path? Hidden within this question is your old addiction, a craving for a unique, own trajectory, a single story that carries the object with it. Physics gives you a cold reply here. The object does not carry a path. You assign the path. What's real is the consistency of comparisons, the agreement of measurements, the match of predictions. The line itself is a human artifact, an extension of your language, a mark of your bookkeeping. And when you shed this crutch, you're left with a new, more abstract question. If the path is a story that you make, so where are you looking for the reality of motion, in the object, or in your description? You understand that measurement is a neutral act. Like you shone a torch on reality and wrote down whatever you saw. But measuring motion is not a torch. To measure motion is an agreement, a contract. You can say, the position is here, but here means nothing until you fix a system where to measure from, in which direction, on which scale. And then time. Now, 1 second from now. These two are just words until you fit the clocks into a set of rules, and this is where your intuition quietly breaks through. You think time moves the same for everyone, and clocks just show that dot, but in the practical world, a clock is not a metaphysical truth reader. A clock is a device that sets some physical process in a repeatable pattern: vibration, swing, atomic transition, and you call that time. Now imagine you are two observers stationed at two locations. You both want to measure the speed of a moving object. You need two things: position and time. Simple dot, but to record position, you need a signal, light, sound, anything. And signals have to travel. As soon as you accept this, your idea of instant measurements is gone. You cannot call an event at some distant point now without first deciding what now means. Here's a brutal detail: simultaneous is also a definition, not a discovery. If you want to synchronize two clocks, you have to choose a procedure, send a signal, observe the return time, take an average or some other method. You're doing the same thing anyway, a protocol. And protocol means you're not just observing the measurement, you're designing it. That's why I say conspiracy, not in the dramatic sense, but in the operational sense. The motion you report is a joint product between the world and your measurement scheme. Till now you were considering motion as the story of an object. Now you can see that the motion data is written in the language of your instrumentation, and this language imposes constraints. As much as you want to capture perfect motion, you can always only capture it through some physical messenger, some signal, some clock, some ruler. The result of this is not that truth is not found. The result is that the meaning of truth now changes. Truth is no longer this: what is the object actually doing? The truth is this: what can you measure, with what procedure, and which relationship survives consistently. And when you reach this point, you encounter a new discomfort. If motion measurement is tied to so your old imagination motion as a clean, observer-free fact was just a cartoon. Until now, you were expecting that the more careful you became, the clearer the motion would become. Too many precise tools, too many accurate clocks, too many fine rulers. And then finally a solid statement. This thing went from here to there. But when you push this idea too hard, the motion is not smooth. Motion fracture occurs. First of all, same object seems obvious to you. This is the same object, yesterday as well as today. But physics asks you, what does same mean? If I see your car, you say, this is the same car. But air molecules are moving in and out of it. Fuel is burning. Heat is dissipating. Atoms are being exchanged. The composition keeps sliding with time. Same is a shortcut in your language, not a stamp of nature. Then same position. You understand that a point is a point, but to define position, you need a reference, and the reference itself moves, vibrates, expands, and settles. The ruler you think of as rigid is based on the thermal motion of atoms. Stability is an approximation, useful, powerful, but not absolute. And then same time. You still quietly expect that time is a universal sheet in which events are pinned. But operationally, you get time when you ask the clocks. And clocks aren't perfect. They have processes. There's noise. There's drift. There's calibration. There's a synchronization procedure. The more you refine now, the more you realize that now isn't a sharply cut knife, it's a tolerance limit. Now to define motion, you say, position changes with time. But if both position and time rely on definitions and tolerances, how can motion remain a single clean entity? This is where the last crutch of your intuition breaks. You think of motion as a continuous film, frame after frame, perfectly smooth. But your measurement apparatus gives you frames, not film. And you imagine the frames in between yourself. This doesn't mean that physics collapses. That's the job of physics, to discipline approximations so that they make predictions, and if they fail, tell us where they failed. But the definite motion that you used to keep in your mind as a property of an object starts dissolving. Here, motion is no longer a clean line, it is a bundle of agreements. Agreements on the identity of the object, agreements on position, agreements on time. And now you get a true, uncomfortable question. If you keep tightening these agreements further and further, so is motion more real? Or are you just making your description too sophisticated? Somewhere in your head, you're still hoping that when all the confusion settles, a simple picture will remain. A universe and the things within it that move. This mental image is so old that you feel it is a copy of reality, but it's just a stage play that your mind keeps playing. a fixed stage, and actors who travel on that stage. The problem is this: physics never reached that stage. If you stop thinking of motion as a feature of the thing itself, a strange possibility opens up. Perhaps moving through space is not a fundamental idea of the universe. Perhaps space itself is not a highway for an object. Maybe time itself is not a universal metronome. Perhaps Kahan and when are the hooks in your language that you attach to relationships so that your brain can handle them. You might want to ask again, so what is really real, even in this question? You bring an old habit. You want something frame independent of your point of view. A truth that doesn't interfere with or depend on your coordinate choices. And this is where physics doesn't directly satisfy your craving, but he redirects quietly. Physics often does not give you absolute motion. Physics gives you invariants, those patterns that remain stable even when your viewpoint changes. Those relationships that reappear in some form no matter how much you shift your frame. You can call them real, if that's what you mean by real, that they persist despite changing descriptions. This is a harsh trade. You have to move away from the story and towards the structure, because the story was, the object went from here to there. The structure is this: different observers relate events in their own ways, and certain relations remain consistent among them all. And then another, more uncomfortable thought: if motion is not fundamental, so your identity, your I am. Here, your I am now, all this also starts to seem like a part of a stage play, not because it's false, but because it's frame-bound, meaningful within one viewpoint, but not privileged for the universe. At this point you get a new kind of awe, not the warm one, but the cold one, that awe that doesn't give you comfort, that awe that silences you. You considered motion to be a thing. Now motion has become a relationship, and relationship means, without to things, without comparison, without context, nothing is moving. The universe doesn't tell you what is going on. The universe simply allows you to make descriptions and then shows you which descriptions are compatible with each other. And perhaps there is something deeper hidden in this. The basic feature of the world is not movement. There is a lot of consistency.